Here are a few tips and tricks that I use to stay more focused and be more productive while editing in DaVinci Resolve. Number 1. Power bins. If you have assets in your edits that you like to reuse between each of your projects, but you don't want to have to keep importing them over and over again every time you go to make a new video, power bins are going to change your life. What they are is an area inside of DaVinci Resolve where you can store assets from your disk inside of your DaVinci Resolve database to be accessed by any project within that database. To turn them on, all we have to do is come up to the top right of your media pool and click on the dot menu. From here, we can click on Show Power Bins. Power bins will appear at the bottom left of your media pool, and by default they'll be empty, but I have some stuff in here just to show as an example. If we click on Master, we can then see that I have a folder inside of Master called Stingers. You can see that I have a few assets available to me, channel intros as well as a sub call to action. I can drag them from here into my timeline to access them even though they weren't directly imported into my project. They can be clicked and dragged right onto the timeline even if you don't have a timeline started at the time. Number 2, full screen. Unbeknownst to some people, you can actually full screen the entire DaVinci Resolve application. This might not seem that significant at first, but it can go a long way towards maintaining your focus when trying to hunker down and get an edit done. To turn this on, all you have to do is come up to the top of DaVinci Resolve and click on the Workspace tab. From here, click on Full Screen Window. I already have it toggled on, but I can show you the difference here. It seems insignificant at first, but give it a try. You might find that it really does allow you to focus better. Number 3, 2D timeline scrolling, or lack thereof. By default, in DaVinci Resolve, 2D timeline scrolling is enabled. This requires you to use modifier keys to scroll the timeline horizontally like so. We can't scroll unless we hold Control or Command in addition to scrolling our mouse wheel. If we hold it, we can scroll the timeline horizontally. Now, this is more a setting that you may want to toggle on or off depending on what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish, but most of the time I find having it off makes my edits way easier to do from the timeline. To change this setting, all we have to do is go up to DaVinci Resolve at the top left, click on Preferences, and then untick the 2D timeline scrolling box from the UI settings user page. Now, when we click Save, we can simply scroll the mouse wheel to change the position of our timeline. Number 4, toggling unwanted pages. On the bottom of DaVinci Resolve, there are several pages from left to right. These include Media, Cut, Edit, Fusion, Color, Fairlight, and Deliver. Now, all of these pages have their own use, but many people will say that Media and Cut don't serve nearly as much of a role as they could and as is necessary to have them on the bottom of the application. If you want Media and Cut, that's entirely fine, but if you don't, it's actually really easy to get rid of them. All we have to do is come up to the Workspace tab, hover over Show Page, and we can untick Media or Cut. If we tick it on, you can see it appears on the bottom and I can navigate over to that pane. But if I don't want it on, all I have to do again is to go to Show Page and then click on Media to turn it off. Your DaVinci Resolve will boot from the leftmost page on the bottom nav bar, so if you don't have Media or Cut enabled, you'll boot immediately into the edit page after starting up a new project. Number 5, default project settings. By default, in DaVinci Resolve, your untitled project settings, where you create new projects, may not be what you want it to be, and maybe you don't like having to change it every time. If that's the case, it's actually really easy to change the default settings. For me, I like to make my projects at 3840 by 2160 resolution with a frame rate of 60 FPS. That's what all of my tutorials are done at. If I want to change these settings here, the resolution is correct, but the frame rate, for example, is set to 30 FPS. That's not ideal for me. All I have to do is right-click on the project, click on Project Settings, and change anything in here that I feel is necessary to change. For example, let's change the frame rate from 30 to 60 FPS. and you might want to change your resolution or any of your remote monitoring settings if they're applicable to you, so on and so forth. You can change all of that. But for me, this is the only change I needed to make. Now we can click save, of course, but that's not going to make it the default. That's only going to change it for this one project. If we come into project settings again though, come up to the 3-dot menu at the top right, we can click on set current settings as default preset. Once we update the default preset, it'll now use these settings anytime we go to make a new project with the untitled project. And if you don't change anything in this list, you don't need to click save again. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this quick video, and I hope some of these tips will help you stay more productive and focused. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more about DaVinci Resolve, check out this video here where I demonstrate the amazing powers of the Magic Mask tool inside of DaVinci Resolve.